Call to order the August 7th, 2017 Transportation Committee meeting. Mr. Dawson, will you lead us in a prayer?
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for blessing us. We thank you for continuing to watch over us. And during this seasons where there are unpredicted rains, we thank you for protecting the people of Ascension Parish. We also pray for those in New Orleans that just recently went through an ordeal where significant rains caused flooding. We pray that you soothe their hearts and feelings, because we know that this is a reminder of what happened several years ago. So we pray for your protection. We also pray for Kyle Rogers and his family at the loss of his father, that you continue to minister unto them. We pray, Father, that you give us the wisdom to do the people's business well and to make decisions that will benefit them and will be a blessing unto you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Got my left-leaning committee here today, or maybe it's right on TV. Man, I tell you. I don't see that we have any public comment cards set up here, but if the public would like to make a comment, please submit a card. Let's see, we're going to move to item number 5, acceptance of the minutes July 10th, 2017 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any opposition? No. Thank you. So approved. Number 6, roads to be considered for acceptance into the parish maintenance system. Ricky Diarmond.
I'm before y'all tonight to bring in some roads in the parish maintenance system. First subdivision we'll be looking at is Hollows of Dutchtown Phase 1. Y'all want to do them individually or?
Yep. Yes, please.
Okay, Grand Hollow Avenue, 1,115 feet.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Any opposition? No. So moved.
Drive, 1,053 feet.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any opposition? No. So moved.
Twin Lakes Drive, 703 feet.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Any opposition? No. So moved.
Whispering Hollow Avenue, 1,003 feet.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Any opposition? No. So moved.
Cypress Hollow Avenue, 742 feet.
Motion.
Second.
Any opposition? I'm sorry. Any discussion? Any opposition? No. So moved.
Second subdivision is Woodland Manor, second filing. Grandwood Avenue, 662 feet.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Any opposition? No. So moved.
Majestic Wood Avenue, 1,705 feet.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilman Lambert.
Rick, all these that we just approved are satisfied and inspected and approved by the administration.
Yeah, they're in good shape.
Appreciate it.
No crap.
The total mileage for both subdivisions is 1.32 miles. for
Okay.
both.
Just for the last one. Any opposition? No. So moved. Okay, moving on. Department report. Mike Enlow.
All right, good evening. The first item is engineering contract design consultants. Their contracts are being developed, and the first task orders are to be issued in the next few weeks. What we did was are developing master service agreements, and we're doing some work on the front end to make sure our Exhibit A, which is going to be a general scope of services and some definitions for those contracts, going to be put in up front. So we've been doing a lot of work on that with HNTB. The next thing is the future asphalt overlay funding scenarios. In an effort to effectively address the road maintenance backlog, President Matassa has requested the Transportation Department develop both immediate and long-term overlay project schedules with multiple budget allocation scenarios. Schedules will be dependent on data that has been collected and analyzed by the MPO and the DPW pavement management staff. So basically, the MPO, we paid around $18,000, I think a year and a half, 2 years ago, for the MPO to basically put an index on all the roads. We have approximately 1,786 roads, local roads. and they assigned a pavement condition index to those roads. So what we're doing is what I want to do is develop some different scenarios and try to forecast out what level of effort we want to use the maintenance money to reconstruct or patch some of these roads versus put some of that money into capital improvement projects for capacity and safety widening and those sorts of things. So within the next month or so, I'm going to try to have maybe a first draft of that to send to you all to maybe approve that or give some comments and see where we want to go with that. Yep.
A brief question on that. How does that tie into the road maintenance program? It seems like we're doing some similar things there.
Well, this is just basically adding some sophistication, if you will, to selecting which roads get put into the maintenance program. You know, we've got some availability and resources to do stuff in-house, patching and stuff like that. But as far as the reconstruction, asphalt reconstruction, we have a contract out right now, and you know, it's just under $2 million, and it takes care of a certain amount of roads, which y'all previously approved. But what I'm trying to do is, we have such a backlog. I want to take a look at that backlog and put some data to that list and kind of come up with some way of programming out for the next few years what level of effort we want to put towards the reconstruction or maintenance of those roads versus capital improvement projects.
Mr. Dawson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that some of you may remember when Ben Laurie was here, we talked about a similar program in which I think that Ascension Parish probably led the effort in doing something, because this was a little bit prior to what actually the MPO was doing, in looking at degradation of roads, you know, to determine how severe they were, but also not just looking at how bad they were, what you had to do, but also to look at there may be some maintenance you could do to a road that was failing to prevent and reduce the degradation so that it's not as fast and make it last longer. So what this is doing through the MPO is allowing all that data to be gathered as a part of the service that they provide to several of the Capital Region parishes, and to compile that information to help in the determination of what we select. So again, it's two things: not only looking at the severity, you know, what's worse, but also look what kind of prevention that we can do to reduce, you know, accelerated deterioration, so that we can make better decisions on what we choose.
If you don't mind, would that include looking at the factors that cause this? Is that what y'all mean by looking at which factors cause it? And would y'all be able to make recommendations to us one day about things that we could do as a council to help prevent degradation of roads?
I think so. I think one thing they're going to look at is probably, you know, the traffic data. I mean, that's the main thing: traffic and load limits and that kind of thing. That you know, what's actually, you know, going, being on in that particular location on that road. So the goal is to have information that will give us a better picture of exactly what's happening. You know, all of you kind of familiar with your district and the kind of, you know, what goes on there. So if we start giving information of increased degradation in particular areas, you know, it'll kind of be pretty obvious as to what's possibly causing them. But again, if there are some things that we can do to prevent that degradation, you know, an ounce of prevention, a pound of cure, so to speak, we want to make sure that we take those measures.
Okay, thank you. Go on. I'm sorry for the interruptions.
Okay, we've got the RFQ developed and gotten to purchasing hands. I think they sent out a notification of advertisement for that today. It's an RFQ for engineering services for Highway 3127 extension. I think the due date on that is going to be September 12th.
And let me just be clear, that's in Donaldsonville, and that's with money that has to be spent on the west side of the river based on the taxes.
That's correct. That's correct. Right now, I would like to call up General Basilica with HNTB to give an update to you all on the Transportation Master Plan and the Move Ascension update.
Good evening, members of the committee. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. You have in your packet a report that outlines a number of items that I can report on. I'll go through them step by step. The Move Ascension projects, just for everybody's clarification, there's an appendix in there that outlines the projects that are part of the immediate action, and then what we're referring to as the Phase B projects that will be prioritized for the next phase of inclusion in the Move Ascension program. Some items, number 2, that have been completed, that you've been advised of, and the ongoing actions that are going on during number 3. As Mr. Enlow mentioned, one of the key items here in the last several weeks has been to prepare the contract for, to help the parish prepare the contract for the CDCs. In addition to that, there,
Mike, I hate to interrupt, but we don't have that packet. I haven't, ours are not responding on our iPads, so we just need hard, I'm sorry.
it's okay.
You almost had the Microsoft. I've got the Apple and it's working.
Whatever. Mine-
Microsoft, it's working.
This one's not, his one's
Was
not
there-
working, mine, and it may be operator error.
Okay.
Got it?
Or hard copy.
I'm so sorry. Thank you.
So, everybody have the, in front of them?
Yes.
We're on number 3. I call specific attention to the prioritization tool. I reported at the last meeting that we developed the tool. It was approved by the parish for use. We are now moving into implementation with the tool to take the Phase B projects and start to go through the prioritization process. I should mention that every single one of those projects, for the most part, has no data. It's capturing the data now, using this tool to be able to develop the prioritization tool for the parish to consider. On the next bullet that you see there is a very important one. The parish president and Mr. Dawson hosted a very comprehensive meeting today with the CRPC and with the DOTD relative to the safety programs, and it was a 2-hour meeting covering a lot of information in detail about where the money is, the various types of money. You see a deadline for the call for projects to get Ascension's preferred projects into those programs by the 18th of August. We're working on those packages right now for the parish to consider, and we'll make sure that we meet the deadline. And then we talked in the past, we're just sort of monitoring how things are going on the FEMA side, just to make sure that we don't spend any money where FEMA may be paying for a road or an improvement that you may be getting. Item number 4, these are 2 that we've talked about. You can see these are the ones that have almost 100% design in both cases. Also, all we need to do is get the right-of-way. There is DOTD money available to do these 2 projects, and so we're working to try to expedite those for some quick wins. Item number 5, and you have another appendix in the back that just basically covers all of the DOTD projects. There's quite a bit that's been let for Ascension. There's more to come, over $100 million. And so it's good news, and that's where you're going to probably see most of your orange barrels in the parish as we're doing the pre-construction for Move Ascension. And so we're getting both those things done. On the preservation side, Mike talked about the overlay program. It went very well. The first projects that they did, coastal, was ahead of schedule, and I think they've just got some striping and things to be done to finish up, and I believe there's going to be another increment that the parish is interested in doing to get the next round of overlay for the maintenance program. If you look at number 7, that's the stuff that we're working on right now, big stuff to move the CDCs forward. Talking about the contract for all 11 design consultants. Hope to have that in the next week or so. Developing also a standardized fee structure for that, as we were requested to do. And then, as Mike mentioned, the Appendix A is the tailored scope for the specific packages that will be put for each of the few that will get the first packages to be designed. Those are being developed. They'll be presented to the parish for their review before we actually the parish will issue those task orders to the CDC. And then we're looking for them to give notice to proceed for topo services and again, subsurface utility activities right away, first part of that. So number 8 is the action items. You'll see a little later on the agenda, need to get the right-of-way acquisition piece in place, need to get the environmental piece in place. Those will be sub-consultants that will do that work, but it will pass through the HNTB master, and we'll have oversight responsibility. The second 2 pages in your packet are all about the master plan. The first page basically tells you all the things that are complete. We're in pause. We're finishing up, as was requested, the needs report, so that we'll have that when we start again. We plan to have some public meetings. When we had the steering committee meeting, that was something that the members of the council wanted to do, talk about the needs so that the people can see that. And then we'll move straight into the post-pause, which is the solutions and master plan development to complete that project. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Councilman Kluart.
Thank you,
Sir.
John. Ms. Basilica, I was just wondering, and the administration was there, so the meetings went well?
The meeting went very well.
I just want to reaffirm to the people of Essentia Parish the magnitude of the possibilities we got in front of us right now. And as we've been saying for a couple of years, you know, we're trying to pushing that our share of DOTD money is good, okay, for statewide. And, you know, with all this incorporated into it, we've got the real potential to make a great change for traffic improvements and, you know, basically quality of life issues. So, you know, I just letting everybody know that the work you guys are doing, the work administration is doing, and our department, that we've got some good potential to get into some big monies, and that we are on the top of a lot of lists out there for help.
Again, the parish president, Mr. Dawson, made it clear that that's what it was all about today. It was making sure that we understood exactly where the opportunities were to get funding and to be competitive and aggressive in going after that funding.
And I just want to finalize by, you know, I can't encourage how strong I feel about having projects ready. That has been our failure within our parish for a lot of years, not having projects ready.
Understood.
And sitting back and complaining about not getting money. When they're ready to hand out the money, we got to have projects ready.
Yes, sir.
And then our current, this parish has never been short about their buy-in and their portion. So we appreciate everything y'all doing for us, getting this moving forward.
Yeah, I'd just like to add real quick, Councilman Kluart, you're talking about the Move Ascension Phase 2 projects. That's a lot of what this is the pre-construction budgeting.
Well,
Correct.
There's pre-construction for the immediate action ones as well.
Yes. No, I agree.
But then in terms of 2 steps really there, in terms of the Phase 2 ones, we've got this prioritization tool now. You've asked us we got to have a way to go through a data-driven, systematic process for picking the projects. So we're going to develop the data, load it into the model, be able to produce a list. It's very flexible tool that can do what-ifs. If you say that, for example, that safety is a higher priority, you can weight this tool in such a way where you can say, well, now show me what the priorities are for projects that would give safety the highest priority. If it's capacity, if it's whatever it is, it can show that. Number 2, you can develop the things in order to be able to show you how much it's going to cost and how far down the list you can get. And you may say, well, show me a different scenario. We did this, we may be able to go further, those types of things. It's going to have the kind of what-if drills that I think will let you make very good decisions in terms of which projects you select to move forward on, based on what funds you do have.
I just want to make sure the public understands, like Randy was saying, is that we don't get projects, we don't get state or federal dollars unless we do some of this preliminary work.
That's right.
And sometimes you don't see that up front. You don't see where the money's being spent. You don't see the orange barrels. But when you don't spend the money, you're not going to see those orange barrels. So that's what we're doing right now. And I just want the public to understand that, because it's a hard concept. It's always, hey, we just bonded out $25.8 million. We want to see things right away. We're going to have some of that, but a lot of this money is preparing us to get a lot more in the upcoming years.
That's exactly correct. You've got, start with stage zeros, you've got to have environmental, you've got to get the right-of-way, you've got to do the design, you've got to get the utilities moved. Those do take time, but there's a lot of that can be done simultaneously, but you got to have projects ready, as you said.
Yes. Councilman Lambert.
Yeah, this might be for Ken. Once the task, y'all come up with the task for the engineering firms, Ken, how are we gonna go about picking engineering firms? You know, we have 11 out there to pick from. Are we starting from the bottom and, from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, and give them, since they were,
Yeah, there have been a couple of suggestions on how we move forward with that, and of course, we had some of the top-rated firms that, as they were scored, we're probably going to go with that particular scenario, but also what's going to be evaluated through HMTB is the experience that particular firm has on particular projects, okay? Because we want to make sure there's some background associated with that. But the goal is to be fair and equitable at the distribution of projects throughout all 11 that were selected.
I want to try to keep the politics, because it's, you
Yes.
got 10, 11 firms, so you want to
Exactly.
get your best and,
Yes, sir.
issue them all out according. Appreciate it.
Councilwoman Cazza.
Yeah, and we will have evaluation, post-project evaluations of each of those firms?
We've been tasked to do that, develop a system
Yes.
that's going to be a simple system in terms of being able to evaluate performance, sort of go, no-go. It was good, they were on schedule, they met the standards, or they didn't.
Would you give them some extra points for beating the time? Please?
Absolutely.
I mean, we need to get this stuff to happen fast.
Councilman Clark.
Hey, while I got you at the podium, I just want to, once again, reach out to you and to Autry and Ricky Tacey, Mike, and Ken, everybody is, anytime you get an opportunity to sit anywhere and talk about improvements on Highway 30 or another exit off the interstate that'll help this industrial corridor, maybe I missed something, I came in late, I apologize, but anytime we sitting in a meeting, it don't matter what the subject is, we're sitting with the state and the federal folks and DOTD especially, do whatever we can to get this Highway 30 issue cleared up. It's definitely a problem that's not going to go away by itself.
If I can respond to that a little bit, today that was one of the discussions in the meeting, the Highway 30 corridor. And we're putting that in for a call for projects to go ahead and get the initial environmental kind of work done. And that because we also had CRPC in the meeting as well. So we are moving forward. They're looking at it as a regional project because, of course, it is regional from Ascension, Iberville, and Baton Rouge. So we feel that we have buy-in and support. There will be more discussion with the parish president of Iberville as well as the mayor president of Baton Rouge to make sure that we have that. So it went very well. And if I may just also give a little comment on the meeting today, it was orchestrated and directed by Ascension Parish. We had a kind of a safety coalition meeting, and out of that safety coalition meeting, we felt there was a need to bring more people in to discuss where we needed to go. What I love about one of the comments by one of the DOTD people, they said, we didn't really know what was going on in Ascension. So we made them aware of what we were doing with the move, what we were doing, and all of the aspirations that we had, so that they will understand. So the goal is to have a group of people who understand what we're doing in Ascension, so that as we move forward, they say, well, I can apply this or I can apply that. It worked very, very well. Just to tell you, we are going to have these meetings will be quarterly. This was suggested by that group and by the CRPC and the MPO that we will have quarterly meetings to update. So it's just not enough to discuss, but it's to follow up and to make sure that we're moving forward. As Councilman Kluwer said, we don't want to forget the mission. So, we found a lot of opportunities at this meeting today, and I think it was a 2-hour meeting that everyone participated, very productive.
One quick note on that. Ken, was anything spoke on the bridge, another bridge being put in Iberville? Because that was a big factor several years back that it came to us, and we put money in on it.
Right.
If that bridge got built, it would have to 4-lane from LSU all the way out on Highway 30 all the way to Airline.
The bridge wasn't discussed, but the need that in order for a bridge to be built, you had to do something on Highway 30. That was mentioned. So everyone knows that the prerequisite to do anything, you have to do something on 30, and that's where the focus is.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Councilman Caglialotti.
Ken, in general, in that meeting, the rumors have been flying about Highway 30 for years, about 4-laning it from LSU to Airline Highway. And there was a rumor a while back said it was going to be done in 2 phases, so you don't have to start in Baton Rouge and work all the way through Baton Rouge, Iberville, into Ascension, and through. Did they discuss any details at all about what the path forward would be?
No, it didn't. Today, Councilman, they just kind of discussed the need to initially start the environmental phase to get things started. You know, these things have to be done as you move forward, so this is step one. So one thing that we do know, and I think that it was mentioned here, I start calling it shovel ready in the meetings. That we got to be to a point that we shovel ready. What that means is that we may have to make some investment to become shovel ready. We have to acquire the right of way. We have to do the initial engineering. But what we did find out that when we do that, when we're going through the scoring process for funding, that puts us at a higher opportunity to be selected. Because, and also, there are a lot of projects that drop out because they don't have that, which is if we do, they give us an opportunity to move forward. And I think that this committee and this council has said that, look, we want to do whatever is necessary to put us in the best position to receive that funding. And that's what we're going to do.
But all that front work is reimbursable.
Not
all of it.
Not all of it. Yeah,
It's
there's some
worth the
programs
investment.
that
If we
you can
can
get
get
some.
action, it's worth it.
If you do some of the acquisition through the
Spend the
federal
money
guidelines,
wisely.
you could get some of it, but you know, not all of it. But
Okay.
but one thing that we're doing, we're looking at every opportunity that we can get to get funds, and what we have to do to put ourselves in the best position to do that.
I have two other brief questions. Where do we stand on the contracts for the CDCs? How long are we looking at there?
In about a week, I think we're finished with the boilerplate language that we have, and so the parish is pushing us hard to get those.
Good, because I mean, that's gonna, once we get that,
Yes,
that's kicking the football, and then we're moving.
correct.
My iPad just shut off on me. Yeah, there it is. Highway 61, airline highway signal timing and synchronization. Tell me a little bit about that, because I find that a very interesting project. I see it's in phase 2, because it stretches, you know, that's the length of Ascension Parish. That's a major artery. Does that mean we can drive through it faster if we do this?
One of the, you may or may not know, I mean, I'll just connect some dots here. You know that Mayor President Broom has brought her BTR program, and she may have been watching Ascension, that this is her Baton Rouge Better Transportation Route for Baton Rouge. That's sort of an extension of the green light that they had. Well, one of the projects that's in that big package is an extensive upgrade to the signalization along airline, and then there's probably some thinking there about that the state would be willing to move forward further out into Ascension in order to be able to make that thing work very, very well. So I think it's something that we need to be mindful of, that's something that needs to be done. There's a lot of signals. They're old, they're not synchronized, and so it costs money. It's something that can really help the congestion and the mobility on those corridors. But they're not inexpensive projects, and that's what East Baton Rouge is planning, if they can get theirs passed, is to do that.
Well, I think that seems like a pretty good idea, because what I say, I don't want our citizens who are working in Baton Rouge driving down airline going smoothly, and then they hit Ascension Parish and it comes to a grinding halt.
Understood.
We want to keep them moving. So it seems like a very good project that spans the entire parish, which I think a lot of us can get behind. I don't have any more questions. General, you can go on unless you...
That's my report.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go back to Mike Enlow.
Oh, okay. Tacey Rabalais is going to give updates on the parish projects.
Evening. So starting with St. Landry Edenborn, as everybody knows, we have not had ideal weather to reconstruct the road. So as of last week, when I put this report together, with all the rain days, their finish date is set at October 12th. Now, they're working to catch up as much as they can. There is a possibility that they'll meet the deadline still if we have a large dry spell, if you will. They're almost done hauling in embankment, and they're treating all the embankment with lime as of right now, and then they'll move to the stone phase. So, which once we get there, it'll move pretty quickly. I do want to mention that there's a couple of different site conditions that we've come across that it was brought to our attention this morning at our progress meeting. So next meeting, we'll update you on what the situation is and how we're going to handle that. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that there are a few differing site conditions.
Stacy, just briefly, they still have the ability to work 7 days a week, right?
Oh, yes,
We're
sir.
not disallowing any days?
That's correct. That's correct.
Make sure they know that.
I'm gonna go over the site conditions she's talking about. When our crews cleared the right of way, they left 2 large trees. And, I mean, they were big. They didn't really want to take them down because they were so large for the equipment. So we have 2 trees that are an issue. At the end of the road that touches St. Landry, we have a stump. They cut the tree down, but they left the stump because there was a water line underneath the stump. So it's something we may have to get that contractor or maybe in-house. We're not sure what route we're going to go yet. But the stump needs to be removed because it falls into the limestone shoulder on the road. So we have to move it. We have another issue on the other end where it's in the city portion, but there's a tree in the right-of-way where they got some dirt work to do, and there's a large pile of dirt. So those are some of the issues she's talking about as far as a few piles. And as far as 7 days, they're working as many days as they can. It's just been a wet condition through it since they started the project.
Councilman Clark.
Do we have all the drainage issues cleared up on that road from start to finish?
All the ditches along the road are cut except the last 300 feet, Randy. All of them's been in. We discussed there is a pipe crossing to equalize from one side to the other that they were having an issue with because actually it falls in the stone. So we may be moving it down in the project a little bit further so they can get dirt on it instead of the rocks. And that's the only issues they had with the drainage.
I'm gonna just ask Mike and everybody, we're looking at October the 12th. This is getting pushed out and pushed out, so please, let's make the decision on the tree.
Yeah,
Don't
and
have
listen,
one
the parish
take-
crew,
take
the
it
parish
out.
crew has gone in and they cut a new ditch from St. Landry because it was causing a problem on a neighboring property. That ditch has been cut, and actually the crew went down there and started grubbing the ditch that goes to, what's the name, Ballby?
Bullby Extension, I believe.
So that's being done along with the project.
I want to mention the stump and the tree that he's talking about. If we decide to let the contractor remove those for us, it's not going to be a whole lot of money. It might be between $5,000 and $10,000 at the most. So we're not talking about a whole lot of money. We just, before we proceed with force count work or a change order, we just want to let y'all know and make sure nobody had any opposition to it.
Well, y'all gotta have some damn latitude to move forward.
Right.
On $5,000-$10,000. It's pennies on a dollar based on the project, and we got a timeline on that project.
Right.
Because we see that being some relief. We don't see Highway 30, I don't see an orange barrel yet on Highway 30 to let the Ashland Road traffic get a little bit better. And we still looking at the other road cutting through from St. Landry to Ashland. So this is gonna turn into somewhat of an alternative for traffic. It's like any other road when somebody finds out about it, but it'll definitely help Lamar Dixon. I just don't want to do anything slow up the project.
All the field is on site. Within 2 to 4 inches, But like I say, it's been just wet conditions. The next phase is once they get it dried out, they plan on cutting lime and extend of the road, and then they're gonna come in and start putting the rocks down, the limestone.
Mr. Dawson?
Yeah, just real quick, Councilman, we would not let a tree hold us up. Whatever we need to do to move it so they won't, hold up the schedule, we're going to do. Second thing, you mentioned Ashland and St. Landry. We reached out to BASF, who we were working with. We're scheduling a meeting with them again because, it kind of dropped off the radar a little bit, but they say they're still very interested in moving forward. So we have a meeting. We're trying to schedule next week to get to move that forward.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
No more questions on Edenborn, right?
No, go ahead.
Okay, my 2017 road maintenance program, task order 1, this report was revised incorrectly. Task order 1 is close to being complete. They have one Bourgeois Road. They have to lay the wearing course, and then they'll be complete with the asphalt work They're waiting for the shoulder material to dry up so they can start pulling shoulders. They'll start on Antioch and move down the list as you see here. So after they pull its shoulders, we'll do a substantial completion, and then we can issue task order 2. We're negotiating with it in-house as well as with them to decide what work is going to go on task order 2. And once we decide, we'll let you know. It should be by next meeting. We're looking to issue the next task within the next couple of weeks, hopefully. So they're within their schedule. I just want to mention that. They just have a few things, punch list items that they have to address before we do substantial completion as well. DOTD projects, LA 431 at Gold Place, that's been bid. I think it's close to being ready to go. It's at the district, and they have to issue their proper documents before they start the assembly period for construction. So we're just waiting for them to have their pre-construction meeting so that their time can start, but it should be soon. The LA 22 mill and overlay, the design was, the GSA was working on the 100% design when a request came in from the Sorrento Fire Chief, Eugene Witek, to put in a crossover at the proposed fire station on 22. So also Representative Johnny Berthelot called DOTD as well to request this. So they, DOTD has commented that they want this implemented. So GSA gave us a proposal to do the survey work, to do the design work, and that proposal came in at little over $9,000. It's attached in your packet. I think Mike is going to go over that in just a little bit. As soon as we get that amendment approved, they should have the 100% design plans within a couple of weeks. So we can get those reviewed into DOTD for hopefully final approval. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
I wanted to mention one thing about that. That is a project that is used, STP greater than 200K. It's one of those projects. So I know Councilwoman Casso was asking about the timeliness of that project and changes. But after it goes through our review process, it goes to DOTD and it also goes to HWA. So we're kind of limited by how much we can push, but I know Glenn and those guys have been working on this and trying to get it fast-tracked. So I just wanted to make that known, that when you have those projects, that's a downfall with getting some extra funding from the feds, is you have some circumstances you can't really control.
I appreciate the clarification, because
Yes,
I
ma'am.
was going to say a month. It's been a
Yes,
month
ma'am.
since we talked about this. So it makes sense.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
very much.
Okay, the next, I know Highway 42 is important, and the contract, from my understanding, in discussions with the District 61 guys, is to be signed early this month, and they're looking at an assembly period of 2 to 3 months, starting anywhere October to November. I'm not exactly sure what the timeline is on the completion, what that contract time will be, but we'll report back as we get updates. The I-10 widening contract negotiations underway. That is a design build from Highland Road to just beyond Highway 73 exit, and estimated to start January 2018. Again, this is coming from District 61, so if anything changes, we'll update y'all as appropriate. The next projects that are listed here are basically from the District 61 office, and they report, they get the projects when they're in the construction phase. I can go through these one at a time if you like, or if any of you all have any questions, I can answer those, or however you'd like to do it.
Do you have any questions? Go ahead. Councilman
Just
McClure.
one. LA Highway 30, 74, San Gabriel.
Mhm.
That's,
It's an Iberville project,
Yeah.
but it affects the routes a lot of our residents take, so
Yeah.
I wanted to leave it up there. Man, I figured you'd catch that, so, but I just wanted to make
Put
sure.
that there for me, Mike?
For you,
Thank
just
you.
for you. I knew your attention to detail.
I'm gonna call Mitch Orso and check on it.
Yeah, you can still call him, I'm sure he'd appreciate that.
Do we have any other questions on the projects? I'll give you a moment to look at them instead of going through them one by one. It's not necessary, I don't believe.
Did you say you wanted to go through them one by one?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions? I see people still looking at them, so I don't want to rush
Yeah,
anybody.
yeah, let me mention one thing,
No,
Councilman.
no, I'm teasing. Go ahead.
Councilman Johnson had wanted to request some information on the Black Bayou Bridge replacement, about when that maybe William Ficklin will be closed down, I guess during the construction phase. I'm not sure of the details, but I promised him I'd look into that and report back to him, so I'll give you guys an update. I know that project's going to be critical for some of the people that live off of William Ficklin. That's probably the only way out of that road. So, anyway, just wanted to mention that.
It's one of Benny's ways out.
Right. We try to keep them in as long as we can.
I just want a quick note on LA 431 on that realign the curve. The job they're working right now. I've talked to several constituents around there, and somehow DOTD did a good job and I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean, they did a good job. A lot of people that hadn't lived there forever don't know that how many people we've had got killed
Sure.
on that curve. And so a lot of the things that we've seen, some of the improvements we had in that last phase on Highway 431, the improvements at Black Bayou Road. You know, people, well, why did they do all this at Black Bayou and they didn't do it at 621, you know? It's based on federal highways, based on safety. And so on that curve, that particular curve, I think there was somewhere around 9 people that have gotten killed in that curve over the years that were on record. So, you know, and so, you know, what they're doing there, it looks a bit costly. It looks a bit extensive for the people that normally pass around that curve and have no issues with it, but it's been a problem for a long time. Joey's out here. He's been in 61 forever, so he knows the problems there. And so anyway, I think that I've gotten some good word from the several residents that live right around there.
Yeah.
That they feel like it's going to be a good project at the end.
Well, I'm glad you pointed it out, because I know a lot of us are worried about the capacity projects and traffic movement and those sorts of things, but, you know, safety is a big issue too, and there's a lot of safety funding, and that's what the meeting was about today with CRPC, was to talk about some of the safety improvements we can do, and it's projects like these that, you know, matter to a lot of people, so, you know, we don't want those to fall off the radar. They're pretty important,
So
so.
it's just like what you talked about with Ms. Cazzo with the fire department crossing there and all, and when it goes back to federal highway, that's one of their first extensive looks is safety.
Right.
And that's one of their primary goals, where they hand out dollars. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, moving on to agenda item number 8, recommendation to move forward with scope and fee negotiation with HNTB for Environmental Services Task Order for Move Ascension. Mike Enlow.
Yeah, this is the environmental, these are the piece for the program, the environmental piece. We're not expecting to have too many delays for permits. It's not, they're not, I guess, as complex of permits to get as maybe other projects. But this is just another component that we're building onto this program to be able to take care of all the projects in the phase 2 mainly.
Okay, are we spending any money on this recommendation right now, or is this just exploratory?
Well, it'll be money in-house spent on the in-house staff with negotiating and doing the legwork with HNTB. So,
Okay. Do you need a motion on that?
sure.
Do we? No. Just recommendation.
50-50 there.
Okay. We don't
I was
need one.
wrong.
Okay, moving on. Any questions on that one? Moving on to number 9, recommendation to move forward scope and fee negotiation with HNTB for right-of-way acquisition services task order for Move Ascension. Mike Enlow.
Same thing with this one. This is another component or building block for the program. This is fairly, very important, much more important, I would say, than environmental. It's pretty complex, the right-of-way. We've broken them down into soft costs and hard costs. Hard costs would be the money you pay to people for the property. The soft cost is all the work, administrative work leading up to that. And getting into your world with all the fees and the terminology for all these right-of-way services is pretty complex. So, but we are trying to move forward with that component. It's a necessary evil. Finding out that there's differences to do it with local funds versus state funds versus federal funds. There's huge differences. So anyway, we're trying to vet through that and really get a good price for that phase.
And I just want to say 2 things on this. This is something that the parish has not done very much at all.
Correct.
And that is buying right-of-way. This is virtually new for the parish, which is amazing. That tells you a little bit about what we've done in the past as far as road work. We haven't done it lately. The second part of it is this is about buying property to do this road work. When people don't want to sell and they don't want to help the parish by agreeing on a reasonable price, it delays projects, it worsens traffic. It's something that is the biggest delay in all of this, is when we have one landowner that says, no, I'm not going to sell you the property for an appraised price, a price that 3 appraisers are going to look at and say, hey, this is fair. One person can slow up this road work, causing traffic throughout the parish. And it's just a request to the people of the parish. We're going to come to you. We're going to be fair. Let's get these projects moving.
Right.
And you as a citizen that lives along these roadways, you play a big role in that.
Right. We've got expropriation powers, but that's not something, no one wants to go there. But it can kill a project. You're absolutely correct.
Okay.
Is
Councilman Clark.
that going to kill our project? That's the thing, is that going to kill our funding? So, when you reach that point. Is that going to slow your project up to where you don't get the funding?
So it could. So at that point, your schedule's blown out the water, not necessarily your budget, right? But if you hit that roadblock, I mean, you can go into expropriation and move forward with that. But that takes could be years. I mean, who knows? I'm not an attorney. I don't know all the specifics, but anyway, it's something that's it's realistic, and we're gonna have to get face it if we come to that point. So. But all the projects I think are good projects, and hopefully we're not going to have too many problems. But you never know what you're going to get to when you have some of these properties. I mean, some of these people have never done any succession planning, so that's something that if someone can't afford to do a succession on their property, and we come to them wanting the property, that may be something we have to barter and take care of with them and for them. So.
Well, we ran into our test case on Edenborn. Okay. So.
Yes, sir.
St. Landry, more connectors, so.
But that's a good point. That's part of this block, this building block we're trying to put into this program, and some of these things we're going to be able to take with us after our program has ended, and we're going to have these procedures and be able to do this whenever we need to with any other project. So. Not that we're looking to buy all the land, but when we need the land for the projects, we want to have a good process to stand behind.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions on number 9? Okay, moving on to item number 10, approval of cooperative endeavor agreements between the parish and Gonzales for the Edenborn extension. Once again, Mike Enlow.
Yeah, this is the cost share for the change order for Edenborn, where we're going into the city of Gonzales, and let's see, I think it's I'm not sure who all got the backup documentation.
Got it.
Give us the number.
You don't have
It's
it?
an intergovernmental agreement.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm confused. This is just the CEA you guys need to approve
Yes.
to move forward with that. I
Motion to
apologize.
approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. Any opposition? None? So approved? So moved? Okay, now my computer's messing around here. There we go. Okay, moving on to, thank you, Randy. Moving on to number 11, Resolution ENG 2017-102, project commitment for STP greater than 200,000 funding for fiscal years 2020, 21, and 22. A commitment of local matching funds of 20% towards 3 proposed preventive maintenance / preservation, capacity, and safety projects. Mike Enla.
Right, this is just a paperwork item where these are the projects we're sending to the MPO for funding for the 2020, 2021, and 2022 fiscal years. We need to get those projects in. The 200K, over 200K is population for our region, so I want that to be clear.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? I just want to be clear that this includes Germany Road, US 61 to LA 44 preventive maintenance and preservation category, LA 74 at LA 929 roundabout, it's in the safety category, and LA 73 and Bluff Road connector capacity category.
This item needs to go to the full council for approval as well.
Okay. Then we have a motion.
Consent.
We have a second. So moved. We'll move this to the full council. And then moving on to number 12. This is a staff discussion on traffic studies associated with parish development. Jerome Fournier, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we had been asked to come back with a look at the traffic policy that's underway right now for traffic studies associated with developments in the parish. And we reviewed several documents. As some of you know, that the parish had contracted with for a study of our current policy, which was adopted by the Planning Commission back in 2003. That policy has been used. It was adopted by the Planning Commission September 10th, 2003. That's currently being used by the parish. Under that policy, the current policy, we have different thresholds that we use to evaluate projects. You know, there's all the way from a threshold of 0, which means that there's less than 40 peak hour trips, all the way up to a threshold of 3, which says that there's over 400 peak hour trips. Under the different categories, there are different things that we would require of a developer in the traffic study, all right, of the engineer. What we did was look at that policy, look at some suggestions, and what you see in front of you right now are some discussion items based on that. And one of the things that we looked at in that policy we have now is that they're looking at basically the analysis on the major roadways of the parish. So right now, what we'd like to do and possibly look at is take that study and look at it from 2 different directions, going out from the project site, and look at take it to the nearest intersection until we get to less than 25 trips, peak hour trips. So in other words, we would take it, there's a project that's in the middle of 2 major intersections. We take it to those 2 major intersections, and if the trips are still over 25, we take it to the next major intersection and look at that as a corridor study, perhaps. That's one suggestion, all right? The other suggestion is looking at, and this is something we've been talking to some of the consultants who've been doing the master transportation plan, creating a database of the parish road network. It's something that we don't really have right now that we'd like to see implemented, so that we can look at right now existing traffic volumes, existing capacity, crash data, future capacity and build-out analysis. And these are things that we're in the planning stages of right now. As projects are completed, we'd kind of put more data into that database and just keep it up to date. All right. There's been a lot of conversation about level of service, you know, and right now what are we dealing with in terms of level of service? If a project right now enters onto a road network that has a level of service D, and all of a sudden that project comes on board, and the traffic that it produces on that road network brings it down to a lower level of service, let's say an E, what do? We analyze that data right now, but are there criteria that we need to implement that would impact that? Now, one of the things that we did as a parish a year and a half ago was to implement the traffic impact fees. So they're paying traffic impact fees, and those fees go into a pot that says that we're going to update the traffic system. I've been in discussions with legal. Can we basically put conditions on projects that would be above and beyond the traffic impact fee? That discussion continues, right? One of the things that we'd like to do is, when we do the traffic study, is require traffic counts to be current, not more than a year old. And that's pretty much happening now, but we want to keep that policy in place. And we need to have those counts during the normal school days, not during a holiday week or in the summer. We're pretty much doing that right now, but that's something we need to keep going on. Then we need to expand the jurisdiction of traffic study requirements to other criteria than just high accident areas. And those would be high volumes and surrounding roads affecting access to the proposed development, lack of existing left turn lanes on adjacent roadways, adequate sight distance, and this is a big one, is looking at sight distance requirements based on the entry onto the highway from that development. Proximity of proposed access points to existing driveways or intersections. Developments that include drive-through applications, and this would apply to the commercial properties, a McDonald's or something else coming into play. And then evaluate the roadways and intersections based on a capacity criteria that would be determined by the engineering review agency. For example, all intersections need to be at a C or better, or a D or better, and that's going to be a policy decision that needs to be implemented by council, or by the entity, which I'll get to at the very end of this. We need to, and this is kind of a touchy one here, but we really need to maintain and update the traffic impact fees to the full amounts as recommended by Duncan and Associates. And the reason we put this on there is because we need to collect enough money in order to do the facilities and make the roads up to date. And then the last item, the second to last item I should say, is that there's been a discussion about the parish itself entering into contracts to do the impact studies. Right now, it's a requirement of the development to pay for the traffic study and do them. We don't see any advantage to the parish actually contracting with these. We're going to get basically the same studies. There are only about 3 or 4 firms out there that are doing these things, and we're getting that analysis from those firms. So I don't think that the analysis will change based on the fact that the contract is with the parish as opposed to the developer. As long as they adhere to the policy that we develop, then I think that leaving them as it is would be adequate. And that's up for discussion, of course, but that is something that staff would be looking at. And I want to reiterate what I started off with, and that's to say that the policy that was originally developed was approved by the Planning Commission, all right? So any recommendation that I would make to the committee is that the committee would recommend going back to the Planning Commission and implement the policy. And then that way we can have, because this is being done for planning purposes, right? So we're doing our drainage studies, we're doing our traffic studies, and they're going back to the Planning Commission so that when they're looking at a project, they're either approving or denying the project based on the studies that are before them, based on the policy that they created, right? So with that said, I know that there was some other items that we looked at and was discussed. There was a memo that was put out by someone in the department prior to me arriving, And they're looking at what actions should take place once the traffic studies are implemented. Should we deny projects? Should we require them to do above and beyond what they would normally do because of traffic implications? Those are something we're still looking at. A couple of the items that they recommended were reducing the size, scale, scope, or density of the development to reduce traffic generation. Well, that's one thing that we can do, or we can phase the project in and say that the project, because of the road conditions, can only handle a certain amount of traffic right now. Until that road's improved, we're not going to allow the second or third or fourth phases of the project to go through. Those are things that we can look at, and I'm still discussing that with legal. Right? So, with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Jerome. I guess you mentioned two things tonight. If there's something that either people don't understand or don't trust, there's two things. One is a drainage impact study, and the second thing is a traffic impact study.
Exactly.
And you made it real clear that there's only about 3 or 4 firms out there that do it. They're going to do it for you, or they do it for a developer, or they do it for somebody.
Right.
And I guess it's going back to the standards, or the different standards. Is what you're doing, is what the state adopts, is the same thing that the state follows, or federal highway follows, or anybody that follows. And when you get down to it, any development, you've got special circumstances there, which is the neighbors.
That's correct.
And the people that come forward, things like that.
Yeah. As I've said many times, I'm not a traffic engineer. I don't claim to be an engineer at all.
Yeah.
And these are very technical studies. There's an Institute for Traffic Engineers. They provide numerous documentations or documents on how to prepare these studies. The engineers who prepare the studies for us are typically well versed in those methods, and that's what we're getting.
Well, and I congratulate you on the statement, because I'm not either. Okay. But I happen to know one of the better ones that's been with DOTD and for a long time, and they are different. They're a different animal. But so there's no standards that we can. Just a quick statement. There's no quick fix. There's no quick standards that we can adopt on grading of the road and the traffic impact. We can adopt some of our own special rules, or, like you said, phase in.
Right.
Until this is done on the road, phase 2 don't come, and until that's done, phase 3 don't come. We're buying ourselves into a long-term agreement that we have to actually facilitate, patrol, monitor, things like that. So, is there a better way?
Well,
I'm just going to ask that quick question. Is there a better way? There's some new thinking to traffic studies. I like what you said, that when you basically look at a certain amount of impact, then you're going to move out to the major intersections.
Right.
Look at another level of impact, you're going to move out.
Right. I think that would be a big step for us in the right direction. And to go beyond that, I think would be a little cumbersome on the part of the engineers trying to evaluate this, going out and determining what a 100-unit subdivision impact would be on a project or a road that's 3 miles away from the project would be difficult to do. Again, I'd have to leave that to the engineers to determine.
Well, I'm just, like I said, knowing traffic engineers, I know that they're using some of the standards for their tables that they use, the standards that's been around for 20 years or so.
Right. Okay. Yeah, as an example.
And there's no new technology that they're using when they find a table to plug in.
Right.
So.
As an example, ITE produces a table, and they update it every year, and it's traffic generation rates. And you'll see these tables, and they have a multitude of land uses. And so a drive-through restaurant, an example, like McDonald's, they will give a particular rate, of traffic for peak hour as well as daily trips. They do them for single-family detached homes. They do them for condos. They do them for apartment buildings. There's about 150 different categories that they plug into that, and they update it every year. So those things will change slightly, not a whole lot, but those are the tables and these are the data that the engineers are using to do their
And
evaluation.
that's a program you're buying into, that you're renting.
That's correct.
or
It's nationwide. They
getting
use
a
it
license fee or
nationwide.
whatever.
Yeah.
I just, well, you'd mentioned that, I don't see any reason to use anything less than peak hour.
Yeah.
You know, if you're gonna look at it, look at worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Look at Germany Road at 5 o'clock in the evening, you know what I mean?
Right.
Not at 2 o'clock in the morning, type of thing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, okay.
I just know there's no easy answers to this.
Yeah, I know. I wish I could give you one right now, but I can't, so.
So,
I'll let the engineer tell you.
apparently, we don't have any in this room.
Right.
Do we have any other questions? I do have a couple questions. You know, you just talked about nationwide, they seem to come up with these numbers. Do they have anything that's more specific for Louisiana? Because it seems to me if you're taking an analysis of a home in one part of the nation, San Francisco, New York, a major city, you got a lot of people that walk. It's going to skew the numbers downward if you're doing that. Whereas in Ascension Parish, we have very few people that have the ability, because of our walkways and our roadways, to walk anywhere. Everybody's using a vehicle.
Yeah, I'll have to check on that because I'm not quite sure if you'll see
We have no map.
regional analysis, say like the south, the northeast, the west, or whether there's a standard for urban centers, suburban centers, and rural areas. I mean, that would seem logical. I'm not aware of that right now, but the tables that I've seen and used are just pretty much holistic, and they cover everything, you know, so I'll look into that, right? But again, I think the tables that are being used by the engineers who are preparing our studies are probably the most widely used in the area, and I'm sure they would know the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so.
And I noted, and I think it's a very good idea to extend the area out that we're looking at. Because right now it seems like we're very intersectionally based. The first intersection you come to, that's it for our traffic study. And we've seen in our parish that nobody stays within their district. They drive from east to west, out of the parish, everywhere. I don't think we're expanding this enough as far as our traffic studies go. So I would like to see that. Do we have anybody, and maybe we can answer that, maybe Ken can answer that, anybody on staff that's capable of doing traffic studies?
Well,
And I say capable, I mean qualified. That's probably the wrong word.
No,
I could do a very poor one, I mean.
I think at this time, we don't have anyone that has that definite background. I think they're familiar with traffic studies. That's one reason why we got our review agent to assist us with that, to assist us with some of the traffic studies. I think that we can probably have some people that look at it from a cursory standpoint, but at this particular time, we had traffic engineers at one time, but we do not have anyone with that designation at this point.
And would it be fair to say that we don't have anybody on staff that could rewrite our traffic studies for us? I mean, it's something that we'd have to put out an RFP for?
I would think so. Yes, sir.
well, that is the purpose of the ERA. You know, our engineering review agency has that capability, and they're the ones who are reviewing the traffic studies, making sure that they meet our standards. And so,
But,
they're not
but our
preparing the
standards-
studies themselves, but they're making sure that they meet our standards in coordination with national standards and regional
Right.
standards.
But my question is, we can raise those standards, right? But we don't have anybody on staff that's able to give us the guidance
Right.
as to how to raise those standards, is what we need.
And that's what we have this, the consultant that we have in place now, ERA. They have that in-house. So if we desire to do something, that would be the entity we'll probably go to.
Okay, and we already have them under contract? And
Yeah,
if,
that's CSRS.
CSRS.
yeah, I'm just kind of filling in the blanks, you know, you know how to do it. Dun, 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 dun. So what it would take is, a task order for them, to them, asking them to update and.
I think that's probably correct, Mr. Chairman, because the kind of scope of work that was initially given to them was kind of open and looked at a lot of different things as related to our ordinances and that kind of thing. So we have to look at it. I would take a look at it, but it's possibly it's already in the scope of work that they currently have.
How soon can we find that out? Because that's what I'd like to see, is a task order to them to have them update and strengthen our traffic study policy. 'Cause the other part of it, my question is, how do we
I have
know?
been in discussion with them, and they have reviewed our policy, and they've given me some feedback. Some of the suggestions that you're seeing on this policy came from them.
Okay.
So we have been in discussion with that. But
Well,
to actually formally get that policy crafted, and before this body or before the planning commission, we'll get their assistance in that.
That's what I'd like to see, is to get that, so that we have something we can present to the full council to actually strengthen these. My other question is, how do we know our current traffic impact studies are accurate?
Well,
I mean, in real life.
I posed that question a long time ago, when I was working elsewhere, and I asked, do they actually go out and calibrate it? Because what happens is that they'll prepare a traffic study, and it says this project's going to generate so much traffic and this and that. Well, have you done it after the project's been built out and gone and look at it and actually done an analysis to see if that was accurate? And I think for the most part it was. I don't know Ascension Parish's history on that, and I'll look into that, and I'll ask CRS if they have any history on that. And that'll be something we'll look at for you.
Yeah, I'd also like to see if they can calibrate the current studies that we're doing.
Sure.
Because I know a lot of people say that these aren't worth the paper they're written on. We've heard that phrase a million times. We don't know if that's true or not.
Right.
And that would either tell us, hey, these traffic studies are worthless, or it could say, hey, they're accurate, but maybe we're not doing them the way they need to be done because we're still having traffic problems.
Right. Okay.
And we could have, and I think that we probably had a couple of presentations from several of these traffic engineers that kind of look at the standards that they go by from a national level. These things are done by these institutions that look at all the standards all around the nation, and then they recommend a methodology in order to determine that, and that's kind of what they do. So we can get that explanation here as well as to what is the best practice, the common practice of determining these type of traffic analysis and whether or not we are applying them. And I think that some of the engineers that have come here and made some presentation ensure that this is the methodology, this is what we're doing to move forward. Now, some of the criteria, as you say, we can look at it from an Ascension Parish standpoint to see what it is that we want, and then they still will go through the method of determining what we want through what is a national standard and what has been posed as best practices for that particular purpose.
We have compared what we've done or what we're doing in Ascension Parish with other parishes. And quite honestly, our criteria for the impact studies, for the traffic studies, are as good, if not better, than some. I know it's better than Baton Rouge, East Baton Rouge Parish. We have a higher standard than they do in some cases. We compared it with Lafayette Parish, and we're similar to Lafayette Parish. And I think the third parish we looked at was St. Tammany, and we're very similar to what they're doing there as well. And so we're not off the board. We have a traffic problem. Nobody's denying that. But what we're doing right now seems to fall with the criteria that's been established nationwide as well as locally. Right? So we'll continue to look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I'll be with y'all next week on that. Let's see, where are we? Moving on to.
I got a quick question.
I'm sorry, Randy.
You'd mentioned earlier about the rural versus suburban and all that.
Right.
You know what? In all honesty, our parish has changed a decent amount. That whereas somebody would even mentally thinking that a roadway and they living in a rural area, that they're actually slowly evolved. So nobody's seen. It's kind of like when somebody gains 20 pounds and and you see them every day. You don't see it.
Hey, watch that.
You don't see it.
Yeah, that's
I'm
true.
talking about Aaron. Anyway, but so what I'm saying is that it slowly evolves to where you really shouldn't be looking at this area, this roadway or whatever as a rural. You should be looking at it as suburban.
Yeah.
You should be looking at another level.
I would agree with that.
And for years, DOTD, I know in all the major areas that I've seen, when they went up to a proposed intersection change or something like that, they put the old rubber band across the road, the pulse indicator, it counted the amount of tires that passed on it in a day. That's real.
Yeah.
I don't know what that costs, or whether it's even feasible for somebody to do say, before they put a subdivision, if that count works. You know, I'm not proposing it, I'm saying that's hard evidence.
Right.
But I just think that we need to take another look at what we're grading, because in all honesty, I'm not taking up for anybody against anybody. There's a lot of times you can throw another subdivision on a road, and you really don't change it that much, because it wasn't worth a damn to start off with. It was backed up, packed up.
Yeah.
People trying to get in and out and all that. I understand it throws more cars on it, but we got a bad road situation that we're working on a master plan for anyway.
We are,
But
yeah.
we need to get some traffic moving. So that would be somewhat indisputable
Okay.
if it's actually done by an independent company or somebody reputable, you know. I don't know.
Well, we'll look at it.
And I'm assuming if we don't know if CSRS has this capability based on their current contract, we can't set a task order for them right now. Okay,
To see if it's in the current scope of work.
okay,
I kind of feel that we probably will.
okay. So that's what we'll have at the next meeting. We'll get a task order for them to review, assuming it's in there, to review our current, the way we're doing things. Like Randy said, you know, we've changed a lot, and we got to change with the times. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, moving on to number 13, staff discussion of accepting roads to the parish road network. Jerome?
Yeah, we had been asked by the committee to look at how we accept roads into the parish right now. And I wanted to, I'm handing out a little series of notes on that particular issue. And I wanted to, Joey's here, and I'd like him to kind of address the last part of that, where we're talking about the roads, because we changed things in, about 8 or 10 years ago when we were looking at road structures and how they're actually put together. Those roads that we've been accepting into the parish right now are pretty good. Mm-hmm. We haven't had a lot of failure in those roads, and I'll let Joey talk about the details on why that's the case and the changes we made. And then once he speaks to it, I'll talk about the possibilities of maintenance bonds and what we're going to look at on that.
Whenever I looked at the existing like roadway design that the parish had, and you know, I came from DOTD, looking at the typical section, you know, the way that we design a road in the parish, it is comparable with DOTD's design for low volume roads. Of course, we don't require a subdivision road to be interstate standard, but the details that I have on this handout just show you that the current design, or the design that the parish has used for the past 8 years, is comparable to what DOTD uses on a roadway with typically a lot more traffic than a typical parish road. So what I have listed here is things that's now in our recently adopted subdivision construction specifications, and how they compare with DOTD's low volume roadways. So the example is like the base course, you know, the saw cement base course that the parish now uses and has been using for the past 8 years. Is 10 inches of saw cement at 250 psi. Well, DOTD uses 12 inches at 150 psi. And I know it's, you know, it's tough to explain all the different reasons why you use a certain strength. You know, the psi is the strength of the saw cement that the designer determines to determine how much cement he's going to put into creating the saw cement. We require more strength. Of course, it's not as thick, but we require more strength than what DOTD does. They use a little more depth, so that's what they chose to do. It's something that as time goes on, I'll look at that part and see if maybe we do need to go a little bit thicker and maybe a little less strength. There's pros and cons as to why you do one or the other. But the bottom line is that we are comparable to what DOTD does for low-volume roads. The amount of asphalt we put on a roadway is 3 inches compared to their 3.5. It's the same design method now that the state uses. So again, we're comparable to what DOTD uses for low-volume roads. And from the time that I did spend with DPW and knowing the issues that we've had on subdivisions, the more recent subdivisions, you know, we haven't had a tremendous amount of maintenance issues on recent subdivisions. Of course, you don't, typically you don't have problems with roadways within 8 years. You know, a roadway, if it's built properly, you're not going to have problems in year 8. You're going to have problems in year 12 or year 15. We do have problems with roadways in subdivisions that are older than 8 years. It was different criteria. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it was before the time of most of the people that's on staff right now. And we do have problems, you know, those are older roadways. Roadways don't last forever, no matter what design criteria you use. But what I can tell you is the design that we've been using for the past 8 years and the few tweaks that that's been added for the last year, and it is part of the current specifications, I find they're very good. They're comparable to DOTD low-volume roadways.
What question? Joey, when we're talking about low volume, our biggest concern on a subdivision is the development of the subdivision with the large trucks coming in and, you know, they build the roads first and then they come build the homes. And what kind of beating does that take on the roads, I guess, the way we're building them today? Should we extend the bond further than 2 years, you know?
That's what Jerome's
to make sure that the
yeah.
subdivision is maybe 80% complete before we approve the roads, you know, because that's where we're seeing some issues down
Right.
the road.
Now, one other thing, just staying again on the design part, is the curb. Because, you know, the roadway is not just the asphalt roadway, it's the curb also, and that's where you get, you know, the larger trucks that'll come through. To let you know, and it is number 7 on that list, our concrete strength is greater than what the state requires for concrete curb. They have the same trucks, you know, that we have. So I don't think, you know, we're doing it better actually than what DOTD does on the strength of our concrete curbs. That's not to say that we don't still have problems with large trucks breaking curb, but you know, it still can happen, and you know, that's something that I think Jerome's going to address as far as if you want to extend a maintenance bond or something like that.
Appreciate it, Joe.
Councilman Clark? Oh, you get your hand up.
Okay. Yeah, Joey, you know, I was around 8 years ago, so, you know, what we did is we tried, and you know, we worked with you guys, with DOTD, when we were looking at certain things. I know Ricky's not in here, a couple guys that were around. That's what we were looking at, exactly what Todd was saying, because Todd was here also, is that we were looking at, you know, pretty road in phase 1, and then it's beat up by phase 3, you know. And so what we did do is we basically outlawed some components of materials that used to go in roads that we're paying for now when we dig them up. You know, some of the base materials that just don't hold up good. And so, you know, we were just looking to tighten up and build the road a little bit stronger. And you know, it's two ways, like you said, two ways to look at it. Either you build something tighter or with more compaction, or you build it thicker, you know, to where it takes a little bit better beating. But I feel like we still got a pretty good road construction plan. And it's, I know our inspectors have done a good job going out and trying to work with it. We have, if we got any developers in the room, hell, they can say that because they went out and had to redo some stuff. I know Jerome's he's gonna touch on the bond that Todd had talked about, but I think we definitely need to do something with that to just hold a little bit more accountability with all the work that's going on. What we've seen in the last year with this flood and a major portion of the parish, roadways that were flooded for extended periods of time, and then the resettling of the base and the movement of it, and a large amount of construction. I live on a little road that's got probably 10, 18 wheelers a day going down it right now. Ain't got but 6 houses on it, but all 6 are being built. And so that's similar to the same scenario that you would have in a subdivision. And, we're gonna see some fatigue. But, we're still living the ills of some of the roads that were built way in the past. People lose track of time. We have subdivisions that have been around for 20, 25 years. And
That's right, and even if if you say even if everything was done correctly and you have a good base and all that, 20 years is a lot to ask for a road to hold up, that long without, some maintenance, sometimes significant maintenance. 20 years is, a roadway's not capable of lasting forever. So it does require maintenance, regardless of how well the initial construction is done.
I think we can agree we have extremely high standards here in the parish for our roadways. The main concern is accepting them into the parish and seeing what we can do to forestall those immediate repairs that have to be done. When large trucks are coming through all the time during the construction phase, we don't want to have to pay for those cracks and holes and things that may arise during that time period, pay to have it repaired, when that's really something the developer should be handling at that point until we reach a certain occupancy rate. And I think that's the direction we're going. I think our standards, as we see, are higher than the state.
Right.
I think that's fantastic, and we're inspecting them. It's the how, when we accept them into the parish, I think is the real key. You have anything, John?
I agree with what Todd said. The concern being the traffic. Once we accept them, they're ours. And tonight we took in 1.2 miles.
That's right.
Well, as the lot starts selling, the contractors go in, you got concrete trucks, brick trucks, construction trucks. We don't know how severe the damage might be, but it seems like a subdivision develops from front to back. So, and if it's one way in and out, all the traffic going to phase 2, phase 3 travels over that same road that was approved maybe 4 or 5 years ago as the subdivision develops. We just want to safeguard our investment, so to speak. I think the technology's there with the new specifications, and I think that roads are going to hold up better. But what can we do to protect them?
Yes.
I wanted to address the bond issue because we talked about the maintenance bonds, and I'll use an example, the ones that you accepted it in today for Hollows of Dutchtown. That's a 3-phase project. We accepted the roads tonight for phase 1 of the project. And as you indicated, they're starting to build in phase 2, then they're going to start building in phase 3 because those maps were just approved and they're starting to pull building permits for those phases. So you're correct. There's one way into the project and one way out. So the trucks that are working on phase 2 and phase 3 are driving through phase 1, right? So one of the recommendations we would have is that we should extend a bond for phase 3. The bond for phase 3 should cover the roads that are in phases 2 and 3. I mean 1 and 2, rather. So that way we could get some guarantee that the roads in the first 2 phases are not going to be destroyed by the 3rd phase, right? But I'll be honest, riding through there, and I think one of the real problems, and Joey alluded to this during his talk, the roads themselves seem to be holding up pretty good, even for construction traffic. Where we get some exceptions to that, and you've seen this through the subdivisions, they're dumping these big old dumpsters, and they're putting the dumpsters and popping them up off the truck right onto the road surface. and all of a sudden we're getting some damage to the roads based on that. That we need to enforce, because they're not supposed to be doing that. That's an enforcement issue. So we're gonna get moving on that one. All right. So they should be placing the dumpsters in a yard or on the site, on the job site, not in the street. All right. The other thing is that one of the things that we looked at is that for a project that's less than 30 lots, what if we have a 1-year bond for those projects, and anything over 30 lots, we'd have a 2-year bond. And if they're phased, we can do what I described earlier, is that we can have the third phase bond guarantee the streets that are in phases 2 and 1, right? So that way we can hopefully take care of some of the problems that we might have on that, all right? So, and then right now, you know, there's discussion about maintaining or having the maintenance bonds at the current level. Right now, when we do a construction project, or they come in for the bond, we have them bond for 10% of the cost of the construction of the roads, right? And that includes curb and gutter and some of the drainage. So we'll keep that level at 10%, but should we keep the bond in place until 50, 70, 80% of the homes have had an occupancy permit? And that's really the trigger, not the building permit, but it'd be the occupancy permit. You know, these are things that we're looking at right now in terms of how much is that going to cost. Would a developer be able to even get a bond, not knowing the duration of the bond? And that would be a key there, because we don't know when the 80th percentile would be reached. And so insurance companies are reluctant to issue bonds over 2 years. There could be a possibility that we could have a 1 year with the possibility of extending another year, or posting another bond for another year, or going beyond that, and that kind of hop step, you know, with the bonds. So I'm working with legal on that, seeing what our options are on that, because that it becomes kind of a legal issue at that point in time, right? So these are the bond issues that we're taking care of right now, and trying to look at protecting the parish in terms of accepting these roads.
Great.
But I will say that Ricky and the crew are doing a really good job of inspecting the roads before we take them in. I haven't been yet, but I plan to go on a proof roll and look at how they're conducting that operation, and that's a critical part before we accept some of the roads in. I know that we've got some inspectors that are walking right behind the dump trucks. If you don't know, proof rolls, they load up a dump truck with sand at a certain weight, and they go down the roads to see if there's any cracking in it. And when they see some cracking, they insist that that cracking is taken care of before we accept the road and passes inspection. So those are things we do on all the roads that we inspect or take into the parish. So, you know, it's pretty extensive, right?
Any more questions?
Real quick, you talked about the term of the bonds. I just have a little bit of experience that the long-term bonds are gonna be hard.
Yes, they are.
Okay,
We agree.
I think everybody needs to understand that, so kind of look at some alternatives, whether it's this bond, then another bond, and another bond.
Right.
Or an
And-
agreement for another bond.
Right.
Because
Yeah, I'm trying to work with legal on that right now.
just a bond that carries on forever,
Right. Yeah, that's impossible to get.
you're not gonna.
It is impossible to get, yeah.
There's a lot of risk in the people that are writing that bond.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
We have any other questions? Okay, moving on to agenda item number 14. Approval of amendment to GSA's contract for additional design on LA 22 in the amount of $9,937.
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Todd, second by second. Okay, any discussion? Any opposition? So moved. Moving on to agenda item number 15.
So move.
Got a motion?
Moved.
Any objections? No, so moved.